Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Richard Moglen, and welcome to this week's weekly watch list. So for this video, we're going to be going through each stock on my watch list for the upcoming week, and I'll talk about the technicals, the chart setup, and also the fundamentals as well. And down here are stocks that are already in my portfolio, and I also own some IBP as well. And if you're curious as to how I decide which stocks will be on my watch list, I initially take the top 400 stocks on my fundamental ranking scale. I copy and paste them into a watch list in TC2000, and then I run this scan up here, which basically helps select stocks that have setups that I would find constructive. So I want the price to be over $12. I want to be a yellow band stock, and if you haven't seen my yellow band video, you should definitely check that out. That should be linked above. I want the stochastic to be less than 80. So it's not too extended depending on the setup that I'm using. I want the close today to be at least 50% higher than it was around a year ago. And finally, I want the average daily volume, the 50-day average volume, to be at least 100,000 shares. So let's go ahead and look at each of these individually, and I'll talk about what I like about these stocks. So starting with AMD, you can see it's broken through its green line a couple weeks back, and since then has increased nicely and is now consolidating its move slightly. And what I like about this setup is you can see a very constructive decrease in volume while the stock is pulling back. And what I also like about AMD is its fundamentals. It's number 84 on my ranking scale. It's got a 38% change in EPS last quarter. Its estimates for the current quarter are 275%. Its sales are not great at 9%, but its ROE is very good at 55%, and its after-tax margin is 12.2%. Now looking at ATKR, you can see, like AMD, it's been on a very good run this year and has actually been consolidating its move a little bit, and then it burst upwards on increased volume as well. And just the last 4 days, it's been consolidating that move. So it is a little bit extended right now. It's got a stochastic of 90, so I wouldn't invest at this point, but I want to see it kind of flatten out, form another tight consolidation like it had right here, and then once there's another green dot or Bollinger Band entry, that's when I would look to take up a position. ATKR's fundamentals are also very good. It's number 83 on my ranking scale. Its EPS change last quarter was 28%. Its sales are not that great at 5% increases. Its return on equity is fantastic at 97.4%, and its after-tax margins are 9.7%. Now looking at AUDC, you can see that it's been on a very good run since 2016 almost, and recently it's been oscillating up and down, gaining value, and during the past few days, it's been really tight on this right-hand side, and I want to see it move above this line that I've drawn here at the 24.36 mark. In terms of fundamentals, AUDC is pretty good. It's number 36 on my ranking scale. It's got solid EPS growth the last few quarters of plus 26% and plus 57%. Its sales increase is okay at 15% growth, and the average over the last 2 quarters of 14.6% growth. Its return on equity is very good at 21.4%, and its after-tax margin is 14.4%. Now looking at CDLX, you can see it's also been doing very good, and it IPO'd in 2018, and you can actually see its growth since this first green line breakout that it had in around June, July of this year. And you can see that recently it jumped up on huge volume. This is 3.5 million shares traded, while its average daily volume is only about 500K. So really increased volume here. And you can see that since then it's been going flat and has been really tight, which is a setup that I really like. In terms of fundamentals, it's number 127 on my ranking scale. Its last quarter reported earnings was a growth of 120%, which is very good. And its estimates for this quarter are 33% growth. In terms of sales, it's done very well, 63% last quarter and an average of 15.1% over the past 2 quarters. So excellent there. And its after-tax margins are 1.4%. Now taking a look at CRSP or CRISPR, you can see it's been doing very well over the past couple of weeks with a massive run here. And you can actually see this cup and handle formation that formed right here, and then it really jumped up out of this handle. This is very close to being a green line breakout, as you can see. It set this mark of 73.90 back in 2018. And if it breaks through on increased volume, with no overhead supply holding it back, it could do very well in a very short amount of time. In terms of fundamentals, CRSP has had an EPS percent change last quarter of 324%, which is excellent. Its estimate for the current quarter are 32%, and its sales are really what's driving this move. You can see an increase last quarter of 37,000%, and before that, 18,000%. So fantastic numbers in terms of sales. Its return on equity is negative 56.9%. But its after-tax margin is 65.3%. So overall, very good fundamentals. Now looking at IBP, you can see that I actually do own this stock, and you can see kind of my entry point and also my stop loss here on the screen. IBP this year has been doing very well, and you can see it's kind of forming a very tight consolidation area right here after it jumped up on increased volume. This is number 60 on my fundamental ranking scale, and its EPS last quarter was decent at 38% growth. The current estimates for EPS change next quarter is 21%, and for the year it's 21% as well. The sales last quarter were 14% increases, and over the past 2 quarters, 12.7%. Its return on equity is excellent at 42.4%, and its after-tax margin is 7.2%. Now looking at InMode, you can see that it's been on a very good run since its IPO, and is kind of consolidating this huge move upward right now. I would like to see it kind of settle down and form a tight consolidation before breaking out again on increased volume. I did try to enter last Friday, last Wednesday, but I was stopped out on this past Friday. So I will look to get into this stock because its fundamentals are fantastic. It's number 2 on my fundamental ranking scale. Its EPS the last 2 quarters is 77% change and 109% change, so very good numbers there. And its estimates for the current quarter is 3,900%, and for the year 124%, so massive EPS growth there. Its sales last quarter were boosted 57%, and over the past 2 quarters it's 56.1%. Its return on equity is very, very good at 71.3%, and its after-tax margins is 40.5%. Now looking at JBL, you can see it's forming this tight consolidation that I really like, and I will look to take up a position when it breaks through this 39.73 mark, hopefully on increased volume. You can see it's been doing very well this year with really big jumps in volume in late September. In terms of fundamentals, it's 115th on my list. It's got decent EPS percent change the past few quarters of 26% and 24%. The current quarter's estimate is only a gain of 6%, which is pretty poor. And for the year, its estimates are 16%. Its sales numbers are okay at 14% growth last quarter, and the average over the last 2 quarters of 13.4%. Its return on equity is very good at 24.7%. And its after-tax margins is 2.1%. Now taking a look at Light, you can see that this is a possible green line breakout early into next week. It just met it on this past Friday and met resistance there. So I'll be watching it and seeing if it kind of consolidates right at this level and then breaks out on above average volume. In terms of fundamentals, it's number 37 on my list. It's got poor EPS the past few quarters of 9% last quarter, negative 4% 2 quarters ago, and 17% 3 quarters ago. Its estimates for the current quarter are 12%, and for the year, 13%. Its sales numbers are 27% growth last quarter, and an average over the past 2 quarters of 30.7%, and its ROE is 25.2%, and its after-tax margins are 24.8%. Now taking a look at MHO, you can see that I want to see it break through this line right here on increased volume as it tried to do this past Friday. It's been doing very well this year and is just kind of consolidating this quick move up that it had in late October. In terms of fundamentals, MHO is number 85 on my list. It's got decent EPS change last quarter of 28%. Its current estimates for this quarter is 34%. And for the year, 18%. The sales last quarter were 15% growth, which is pretty good. Its return on equity is 14.6%, which is decent, and its after-tax margins are 5.8%. Now taking a look at MKTX, you can see it's maybe forming a cup and handle pattern right here, and I want to see it break through this line at around the 412 mark. In terms of EPS, it's got decent growth with 34% last quarter, and 2 quarters ago, 15%. The estimates for this quarter are not that great at 6% increase, and for the year, 15%. Its sales are very good though, at an increase of 30% last quarter, and over the past 2 quarters, an average of 23.5%. Its return on equity is very good at 31.8%, and its after-tax margins are 41%. Looking at NMIH, you can see the exact pattern that I really like to see, a quick jump upwards and then a tight consolidation pattern forming. It had a green dot 1 bar ago, which could be a possible entry point, and I want to see it burst upwards on increased volume, just like it did back here. In terms of fundamentals, it is very good, and it's number 8 on my list overall. It's got really good EPS growth numbers the past few quarters with 54, 48, and 65% changes. The current quarter percent change is estimated to be 52%, which is fantastic, and for the year, a jump of 53%. Its sales are very good at 42%, and its return on equity is 18.7%, and its after-tax margins are 49%. So very good fundamentals overall. PGNY is a new IPO that kind of moved up very quickly and is now consolidating this move. So what I want to see it do is really break through this line at 29.35 on increased volume. In terms of fundamentals, PGNY is ranked number 45 on my list. Last quarter, its EPS jumped 300% and its sales jumped 115%, so very good in those areas. Its return on equity is not good at negative 46.9, but its after-tax margins are 2.7%. The next stock on my list is QRVO, and you can see it really jumped up quickly on increased volume here, with an average volume of 1.2 mil, and on this day it was 8.8 mil, so definitely institutional interest there. And you can see from that point onward, it jumped up a little bit and is now consolidating that move and getting really tight, and you can see this Bollinger Band squeeze happening right here. In terms of fundamentals, there's not much to look at. It's number 401 on my ranking scale. Its earnings are poor at negative 13% last quarter. Its sales are down 9%. Its return on equity is pretty good at 16.1%, and its after-tax margins are 22.5%. Now looking at RNG, you can see it jumped up on huge volume for 2 straight days, and now is kind of oscillating and getting tighter and tighter on this right-hand side, and also has that Bollinger Band squeeze right here that could mean that it's ready to jump up very quickly on increased volume. Overall, it's been doing very well this year, and this is actually one that I might cover on my next market winners. So make sure if you have any suggestions for that series that you leave them down below. Basically, the criteria I'm looking for is a huge increase in price and value in a short amount of time. So for instance, in my first episode, I did InMode, which increased 100% in just a matter of weeks. So that's the type of stock that I'm looking for. In terms of fundamentals, RNG is number 65 on my list. It's got decent EPS change of 16% last quarter. Its estimates are negative 9% for the next quarter. Its sales are good at 34% growth. Its return on equity is 24.2%, which is very good, and its after-tax margins are 8.3%. Now looking at SPAR, you can see a similar pattern. It moved up very quickly on 3 straight days of increased volume, and is now kind of consolidating this move. You had a bunch of potential entries right here with Bollinger Band bounces and green dots, and you can also see this Bollinger Band squeeze happening during the last few days. So definitely one to watch. In terms of fundamentals, it is number 14 on my list. Its EPS last quarter was excellent at a growth of 106%. Its estimates for the current quarter are 260%, which is very good. And for the year, the estimates are 88%. Its sales the past 2 quarters are 28% last quarter, and the average of 31.3% over the past 2 quarters. Its return on equity is 9.6%, and its after-tax margins are 4.3%. Now looking at WCG, you can see this is another potential green line breakouts, with the line being set in October of last year. And you can see just as it's near this line, it's kind of consolidated. So look for volume to decrease and then look for it to break through the line on increased volume. In terms of fundamentals, it is very good. It's number 34 on my ranking scale. It had really good EPS numbers last quarter of growth of 65%. The estimates for this quarter are up 33%. And for the year, the EPS percent growth is 41%. And finally, taking a look at Zyme, you can see this is another recent IPO, and there's no really established setup for this. It could be forming this tight consolidation on this right-hand side, but I think it needs a few more days to do that. I thought this was just a really promising stock, and you can see that since the kind of entry right here, where you would enter right at this point by IBD, you can see that it's up 25% to that point, and then probably a further 10% up here. So this definitely is a stock that after it consolidates and then gives another entry signal, I'll definitely consider investing in. So overall, once again, these are the stocks that I'm watching for this week. I definitely want some feedback, guys, if you think this is the best format to present my watch list in. I think fundamentals are very important, but it's kind of boring to just listen to me list what they are. So let me know if you just want kind of a reference document that I could put in the description, and I feel like that might be a good idea. So make sure you let me know what you think, and other than that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in future videos.